Hello and welcome. Let's check out a binder of 1990 Donruss baseball cards, the iconic red border, really innovative at the time with these kind of handwritten names on top. If you've seen these, you know them. And this is going to be an unearthed collection. It's been untouched since probably 1990 when it was pulled from packs and put together in these Ultra Pro sheets. And so I thought it would be fun to get a feel for what it would be like to find an on-search set and see kind of how many superstars would be in there and what that experience would be like to just kind of go through an old collection and see what surprises await. So that's what we'll do in this set. And to make it a little easier and a little more fun for you, I've already gone through and I have marked the cooler ones, bigger name superstars with a little tab like this. So as we go through, you'll get a feel for if you pull out a set or buy one at a sale or something, kind of what it may be like in terms of how many big stars, big names, big cards you may get, and just kind of looking through the collection as we go. So what I'll do is I will put these over here, and then I'll kind of zoom in a little so we can check out the names as we go. And then those two are stuck together. Yeah, and then I won't stop on all the names for sure. That would take forever. But anything that's cool, we'll kind of call it out so you can share in that experience too. So here's a checklist. I think I just marked that to show that the tabs are there. And also surprised, I wanted to note the Ultra Pro pages. They're supposed to be archival, and if you could look decades later, they're still in good shape and clear, do not seem to have impacted the cards at all. So thankfully, their claims of being archival have seemed to pan out quite successfully. And that could also be a good indicator for, saving cards for the future, how taking care of them can actually result in them being in good shape, years and years later. So anyway, with that, let's start cruising through. We got checklists. We have our Diamond Kings, Ed Wiston, Pete O'Brien, and then the backs. We'll check out the backs. They're kind of this, reddish border. You have your text inside. The checklists have obviously the player names, the checkbox, and the number. And the Diamond Kings have the team name, the player is on, the player info, and a little bit about why they are considered a Diamond King. All right, let's get in a groove. Howard Johnson. There we go. We got some Hojo Diamond Kings. We got John Franco. We got the Bo Jackson Diamond King. That's a pretty big one. Let's give him the horn and some flames. That is definitely a biggie. So cool. I already found a very special card, just pages in. And now we're getting on to the iconic looking cards that aren't the special subsets. And if you've seen these, you know them instantly. And we got Will Clark down here. And the back of these cards is going to be the standard Donruss. You got your colored border, stats in the white box in the middle, your number, and career highlights below. So pretty neat there. And definitely a recognizable part of this set. We got Dave Henderson, Chris Sabo, David Cohn of the Mets. And we'll just kind of cruise through these, imagining, you're pulling out a collection. Who's going to be in here? Who was big back then? Are they still big now? Think about how much has happened in the decades since. So it's kind of fun to see where some of these players have gone. Here's Bobby Bonilla, another great player. And some of these players are, out of baseball now, retired, doing other things. Some are coaches. And so it's really cool to kind of see when those players that, were pretty impactful, as players are now still involved and prominent, as coaches. So, yeah, we've got them. So let's see. We should have a big name coming up soon, I hope. We got Greg Olson, Dave West, Terry Pendleton. And Rick Cerrone, Dave Righetti, Mike Maddox, Mike Scioscia. All right. Jeff Hamilton, Danny Tartabull. All right. Bob Boone, Dave Parker. Cruising through, we got Dwight Swift, Ken Hill, Charlie O'Brien. Some cool names, some cool players. Nice design on the card. You get this like black kind of, stylistic, almost paint on the sides, like, they threw paint at it. Pretty unique. Jim Cora, Norm Charlton. And on we go. We got Deion Sanders. There we go, in his Yankees uniform. And Gene Larkin, Pat Tabler, Ron Hassey, Bob Melvin, Otis Nixon, and Benito Santiago. Here we got Jeff King and Ron Jones, Dave Anderson. And here we have Sammy Sosa. Years before, he'd be hitting all the home runs that he did. And it's kind of fun to look at these cards and, see what players have done after this year. Some pretty significant stuff. All right, we got Pete Smith. And it's interesting when you look at it, it's almost like opening packs today. You kind of have a certain ratio, obviously, of like huge name all-stars and rare cards versus common cards. And even going through this, which is essentially just, I believe, packs that were open and then tucked right into these pages, you kind of get a similar distribution. You get a few of the all-star huge names in there, and then a lot of common cards in there as well. And I think that's one of the reasons that, the set building days of the 90s have kind of shifted more towards, multiples of a single popular player with different variations. Because if you're collecting, I think this was a 700 card set, like that's a lot of cards to get. That's a lot of cards to store. And, a lot of cards that are going to be duplicates, triplicates, and more. And so, in a way, the more contemporary, modernish way of collecting makes it a little easier, in terms of getting key cards. And here we go. We got Bo Jackson, double Bo Jackson. That's amazing. And that's his 90 Donruss card. So very cool to see those. And yeah, it makes it a little easier to collect when you've got, mostly popular players that you're really looking for. And here's interesting. Same card, the Dave LaPointe card. This one seems to be a little more muted in color. This one a little lighter. So you can see during the print runs. Let's check the back and see if there's any differences about it. Yep. So if you look, let me try to bring it up. Let me get my little pointer device here. So if you look here, these are both LaPointes. All right, let's see if I can get it. So if you look next to the ink incorporated here, there's a dot. And if you look up on this card here, there is no dot. And that was one of the, quote unquote errors of this set. I don't know if it's an error so much as it is a printing sequence variation. But I think on the earlier ones, they did not have a dot. And the later ones, they added the dot. And so if you could see, here's the later one on the side, this one here, and there's the earlier one. You can even see differences in the kind of the ink tone, which is natural, even if they're not, quote unquote errors, in sequence, but just how the inks print different over time, different paper. It should be relatively consistent, but the colors can be different in different print runs. And so that's an interesting part of collecting, because say you're buying a card from any year, and they're both, a PSA 10 of this player, one may actually look a little different, I think, than the other. I'm not sure if PSA takes, color value into account, as if they have like a baseline, this is the best color and we'll only give 10s to that. I don't know. Though just an idea to keep in mind is that two cards that grade the same, may possibly look a little bit different. And haven't proven that yet, but it could be something to keep in mind. Because if you look at these two, I think this one probably looks a little more realistic than this one. So I probably prefer that. But yeah, it is up to each of us what we like the best. But just wanted to point that out. Pretty cool example. And actually, this one right here, right below it, and this one right here. Let's see if this pans out. So yeah, this one does not have the period. This one does next to ink. And this has a period there. This one does not. So that is, yeah, 3 examples on 1 page of different print runs. That's really cool. Definitely not planned at all, and part of the fun of checking out this set in its original pages way back from the day. And here we go, Mike Marshall, probably another situation of that. Same thing with Kevin Seitzer and Steve Sachs. So, all right. There you have it. On view, Alan Trammell. All right, we got Cal Ripken. Now we're starting to get some of our big lookers, and here we got Paul Molitor. Again, some color differences. So I'm sure if you look for within collections, you'll see that too. And yep, Steve Buechele and Jim Abbott. Let me just see. These are very different. Again, in terms of color, a lot lighter here, a lot darker. Let me just double check our hypothesis of the period next to it. And yep, this one on the end has the period. This one does not. So again, this one has the period. This one does not. So definitely a difference between print runs. And all right, on we go. Let's get cruising. I think we're probably about 75% done. So we'll speed up these next few. And that's kind of cool. Because to be honest, I'm not sure if I would notice that looking just through a stack of cards. But when you have these under light right next to each other, it's kind of a cool thing to notice. So definitely fun. Jose Canseco, there we go. Getting some cool ones. And Herbie Brooks, Ozzie Guillen, Chili Davis, and Craig Worthington. Let's see who we've got next. I'm sure there's some more in here. George Brett, there we go. And Gary Carter. Some big ones. Greg Maddux, when he was on the Cubs. Ruben Sierra. And Dwight Gooden. There's 3 Dwights right down there. That's awesome. All right. Fred McGriff. Howdy Fred. Randy Bush. Mike Kingery. And Terry Kennedy. All right. Mike Felder. Kurt Wilkerson. And Jerry Reed, among some other great players. Franklin Stubbs, Don August, Tim Teufel, Manny Lee. And on we go. Jeff Musselman, Paul Sorrento, and Vance Law. Oh, it was interesting. I was looking at this very quickly, and I was like, oh, he's catching the ball as it bounces in front of him. And I'm like, wait a second, these don't have it. So that seems to be a printing error with the ink, but it's kind of funny how it looks like a ball that's bouncing, but obviously he wouldn't have reacted to it yet. But nope, just some ink right there. All right, just a few left. We got Tracy Jones, Brian Holton, Scott Sanderson, Paul Gibson, Alejandro Pena. Xavier Hernandez, Tom Filer, and Bernie Williams. All right. Jeff Houston, Mark McGuire, his All-Star card, Benito Santiago, Oral Hershiser, Paul Molitor. These are the MVP cards. A fun subset of the overall card set. Pedro Guerrero, Tony Gwynn, Tim Raines, Glenn Davis, and we're almost at the end. We got Bobby Bonilla. Here we got some MVPs. Cal Ripken. We have John Smoltz. And this one I believe is special because it is John Smoltz, but it has the photo of another player. I forget what his name was exactly, but I believe that was a rare error card because it's a John Smoltz card on the front and the back, though it's a different picture on the front. Chili Davis. Here we go. Joe Girardi, Darryl Strawberry. Looking at some great players. And lastly, we have Doug Strange, Jeff King, Bob McClure, and Paul Ostenmacher. All right. So that is a look into an unsearched 1990, the classic Donruss red set of baseball cards. And we found a lot of cool superstars in there. I think it just kind of like if you're opening packs today, the ratio is going to be similar. And so it's really fun to kind of pull out those names. I'm sure they were fun then to pull. Definitely fun now. So I hope you had a good time. Hope you learned something. And there you have it. Until next time.